What happens when an undercover boss steps into his own store and stops cold at what the cashier says? That single question draws our curiosity. Andrew Carter, a 52-year-old CEO, once believed he had a firm handle on his company. Yet numbers and spreadsheets could only show so much. He owned Carter's Market, which grew faster than he imagined. One day, Andrew realized something was missing. He recalled his mother's words. "You can't truly know a place until you've walked in someone else's shoes." He decided to test that theory. He had no idea how much his perspective would change. Andrew's story began decades ago, in a coastal town where he opened a tiny shop named Carter's Corner. He loved greeting customers personally, sometimes slipping an extra treat into the bag of a neighbor who struggled. Over time, that shop became popular for its friendly atmosphere. Families flocked there, attracted by fair prices and personal warmth. As Andrew expanded into multiple locations, he tried to keep that small-town spirit alive. Still, the larger Carter's Market grew, the less he felt connected to the day-to-day heartbeat of each store. Eventually, he wondered if everything had become too impersonal. He remembered how, early in his career, he worked the register himself. He saw an old gentleman come up short on cash, and it felt right to quietly cover the difference. But now, corporate tasks kept him behind a desk. He missed the human stories that once inspired him. Over coffee one morning, he confided to his longtime assistant, Marcus, that he felt out of touch. Marcus suggested going undercover. Intrigued by the idea, Andrew prepared a disguise. Only Marcus knew his plan. It felt risky, but Andrew believed it was the best way to see his stores through fresh eyes. Andrew arrived before dawn at a relatively new location on the outskirts of a busy city. He wore scruffy jeans, a worn jacket, and a faded baseball cap. He introduced himself to Hannah, the store manager, as Andy Walker, a temporary hire from another region. Without hesitation, she handed him a spare name tag and put him to work in the produce section. Andrew's heart pounded. He hadn't stocked fruits in years. Still, he found a certain nostalgia in arranging apples and oranges, listening to the chatter of co-workers, and watching customers shuffle through the aisles. An hour into his shift, he noticed a cashier who immediately stood out. She was tall, with short hair pinned behind her ear, and her name tag read Riley. She looked to be in her late 20s. Riley greeted each customer as though they were old friends. She remembered small details: someone's favorite cereal, a child's birthday, an elderly shopper's bad knee. Andrew had taught his staff to be personable, but Riley's approach was unusually heartfelt. Intrigued, he busied himself shelving onions near the checkout, hoping to overhear more of her interactions without drawing suspicion. Soon, a visibly anxious man in threadbare clothes placed a few basic groceries on Riley's counter: a loaf of bread, milk, and some canned soup. He fumbled with coins, apologizing that he might have to remove an item. Riley leaned in gently. "Let's see what we have," she said in a soothing voice. When the total exceeded the man's change, Riley discreetly pulled out a couple of bills from her own pocket and slipped them into the register. The man, turning red with embarrassment, tried to refuse. Riley just gave him a reassuring smile. "You're all set. Take care, okay?" Andrew was stunned. He kept loading onions onto the display, but his mind raced. Why would a cashier dip into her own money for a stranger? Was this a one-time gesture? Over the next hour, he saw Riley quietly give a discount to a stressed mother and add a small coupon for a senior shopper. Each act was subtle, unannounced. It wasn't the store's policy. She was simply helping people who needed it. Andrew felt a swell of admiration, tempered by concern. He wondered how often she did this and what it cost her financially. During lunch break, Andrew ventured into the cramped break room where Riley sat alone, sipping tea. He introduced himself with a friendly shrug. "Hi, I'm Andy, new guy stocking produce." She smiled politely. He mentioned he'd seen her help a few customers that morning. Riley looked away, almost shy. "It's not much," she said. "I've been there before, counting every penny." She hinted at a tough upbringing, mentioning her father's passing left her family in a tight spot. Andrew felt something catch in his throat. He realized that her empathy was rooted in hardship. It made her generosity even more remarkable. Over the next few days, Andrew found himself drawn to Riley's interactions. She never advertised her kindness, yet she consistently looked out for those who struggled. He witnessed her calmly diffuse an argument over a mislabeled price and slip a bag of day-old muffins into the cart of a worried parent. She treated everyone with understanding, whether they bought a single item or a full cart of groceries. Andrew's curiosity only grew, so he asked a few colleagues about her. A stock clerk named Edna explained that Riley often took extra shifts to support her younger brother Dylan, who needed tutoring. Edna lowered her voice. "I hear she barely takes a day off, even when sick. She's covering rent, utilities, and Dylan's school costs, yet she still finds a way to help strangers." Andrew felt a mixture of awe and guilt. Had he fully appreciated the sacrifices of employees like Riley? He doubted it. He recalled spreadsheets indicating staff turnover, wage rates, overhead. None of them revealed the depth of someone's personal trials or their big hearts. Andrew wondered if similar stories were hidden at his other stores. He suspected the spreadsheets told only half the truth. On the third day, Andrew met Hannah in the storeroom. She was sorting new arrivals, looking tired but steady. He hinted he was curious about Riley. Hannah instantly brightened. "She's our best cashier. People love her. If I could promote her, I would, but we're stuck with corporate's freeze on promotions." Andrew felt a jolt, remembering how he'd signed that very freeze to reduce costs. He swallowed hard, realizing the corporate approach didn't match the genuine warmth he once envisioned for Carter's market. Although the numbers made sense on paper, they ignored the real contributions people like Riley brought every day. That evening, Andrew stayed late to help with inventory. When the store finally closed, he could barely contain his plan. He asked Hannah to gather the staff for a quick meeting in the produce aisle. Workers were wiping countertops, stacking crates, and yawning from the long day. Andrew stood there, nervous but resolute. He removed his cap, revealing his neatly combed hair, and tugged off the fake beard he'd been wearing. The employees looked puzzled. Riley blinked, as if uncertain what was happening. In a calm voice, Andrew said, "My name is Andrew Carter. I'm the CEO of Carter's Market." A hush fell over the group. Riley's mouth fell open. Hannah nearly dropped her clipboard. Andrew took a breath, trying to keep emotion from overwhelming him. "I've been here undercover because I needed to know what life is really like on the ground. I didn't want special treatment or rehearsed answers. I've learned more in these few days than I have from any set of reports." His voice grew shaky as he turned to Riley. "I watched you quietly help people who can't afford groceries. I know you're juggling your own challenges, yet you still reach into your own pocket." Riley's eyes shimmered with tears. Andrew continued, "Your compassion encapsulates what I always wanted this company to be, a place where neighbors help neighbors. You've reminded me that Carter's Market should stand for community, not just commerce." He paused, letting his words settle in the silence. Then, in a determined tone, he said, "I'm lifting the freeze on promotions. Effective immediately, Riley, I'm promoting you to shift supervisor, with a raise that reflects your dedication. Also, your brother's education shouldn't be a burden. I'm establishing a scholarship fund, starting with Dylan as its first beneficiary." Gasps and applause erupted. Hannah clapped a hand over her mouth, visibly relieved. Some employees whooped in support. Riley's shoulders shook with sobs, tears streaming down her cheeks. Andrew offered a gentle smile, adding, "But this isn't just about one person. I'm also launching an employee assistance program across all our stores. It will provide financial help in emergencies so no one feels alone in a crisis." A wave of cheers swept through the staff. Their tired faces suddenly glowed with renewed hope. Andrew felt a surge of pride, mixed with relief that he could back up his words with real action. Once the applause died down, Hannah stepped forward, thanking Andrew for recognizing the team's efforts. She'd worried about how to support people like Riley while adhering to corporate constraints. Now, she saw a future where the company's compassion matched its ambition. She thanked the employees for their hard work, promising more open communication about their needs. Riley tried to speak, but her voice cracked with emotion. After a deep breath, she managed, "I never did this for a reward. I just didn't want anyone to feel hopeless like I did when I was younger." Andrew assured her that was exactly why she deserved recognition. He shook hands with each employee, thanking them personally. Some shared their own stories, like Edna, who cared for an ailing parent, or Carla, who juggled night classes. Andrew realized every worker had a hidden struggle and a hidden strength. Feeling a rush of humility, he understood how much empathy could transform a workplace. He left that night determined to realign corporate policies with the kindness he'd just witnessed, convinced it was not only the right thing to do, but beneficial for everyone involved. Back at the corporate office, Andrew faced skepticism from a few board members worried about potential costs. He responded with a simple truth. Satisfied employees create better customer experiences, which lead to stronger sales and loyalty. Over time, they would see that kindness was also a wise investment. He lobbied for a permanent scholarship program and a robust employee assistance fund. His voice carried more weight now, backed by the real stories he'd encountered. As plans rolled out, the company culture slowly shifted. Managers across different locations paid closer attention to staff well-being, hoping to replicate the spirit that Riley embodied. Word of Andrew's undercover visit spread like wildfire. Employees at other stores speculated whether the CEO might drop in unannounced. Morale received a noticeable boost. Some managers started featuring employee spotlight boards, praising small acts of kindness. Others launched local partnerships with food banks or shelters. The idea was to encourage community engagement and highlight the people-first identity of Carter's Market. Andrew's email inbox flooded with notes from staff thanking him for caring. He replied to as many as he could, emphasizing that the real heroes were the workers who showed up every day, determined to make a difference. Meanwhile, life changed for Riley. She adjusted to her new position, training cashiers to greet customers warmly and handle conflicts with patience. She finally managed to cut back on extra shifts, using her raise to focus on Dylan's needs without wearing herself out. Some regulars teased her for going corporate, but she remained the same genuine, empathetic soul. She championed store fundraisers and encouraged her co-workers to support local charities. Customer surveys soared in positivity. Beyond the data, Hannah and other managers noticed a deeper calm settle over the store. Even on hectic days, staff felt united, inspired by Riley's example. Andrew returned to that location a few months later, no disguise this time. Employees recognized him instantly, greeting him like an old friend. He was delighted to see small but significant changes: an updated break room with better chairs, a bulletin board featuring staff birthdays, and a donation box for a local shelter. Riley seemed comfortable in her new role, stepping in to assist a rookie cashier while sharing a lighthearted joke with a customer. The atmosphere was warmer, friendlier. Andrew shook Hannah's hand, thanking her for fostering such a collaborative environment. A local journalist caught wind of the story and interviewed Andrew, who explained he never intended to orchestrate a publicity stunt. He simply wanted to reconnect with the soul of his enterprise. The reporter asked what he learned most from going undercover. Andrew answered that behind every sale is a human being with a story. Empathy can't be faked. If you nurture it, everyone benefits. He went on to praise Riley without naming her, respecting her privacy. Still, he made clear that employees who invest kindness into the community were the real backbone of Carter's Market. Inspired by the changes at Carter's Market, some neighboring businesses asked Andrew for advice on improving employee morale. He encouraged them to start small, open dialogues with workers, allow for flexible solutions, and recognize acts of compassion. Kindness isn't a line item on a balance sheet, but it shapes the entire bottom line, he often said. As time went on, the scholarship program expanded, offering support for children or siblings of employees across all branches. The Employee Assistance Fund saw moderate use, covering medical emergencies or sudden hardships. Each success story reinforced Andrew's conviction that profits and humanity could coexist harmoniously. Riley's younger brother, Dylan, benefited immediately from the scholarship, reducing the financial strain on his sister. He showed appreciation by volunteering at school events, inspired by the chain reaction his sister's generosity had set in motion. Meanwhile, Riley herself blossomed in leadership. She urged new hires to notice those small moments that make a difference, helping a single parent juggle groceries, comforting someone who's had a rough day, or finding small ways to lighten another's burden. If a coworker seemed overwhelmed, Riley was the first to ask if they needed a break. Her empathy became contagious. Andrew continued visiting various stores, sometimes surprising employees by rolling up his sleeves to bag groceries or rearrange shelves. Everywhere he went, rumors circulated. Is he undercover again? He'd laugh and say, "You'll know who I am this time," but still delighted in hearing raw, unfiltered perspectives. When staff approached with concerns, he listened attentively. It felt good to be on the floor rather than stuck behind layers of corporate protocol. He recognized that not every store had a Riley, but each had someone quietly making a positive impact. He wanted to honor those people as well. One day, Andrew received an email from a manager at a different location, praising an older cashier who often came in early to clean the parking lot without pay. This sparked Andrew to start a Community Heroes segment in the company's internal newsletter, celebrating employees who went above and beyond. Photos and personal stories graced the newsletter's virtual pages, motivating teams to think creatively about how they could serve customers and each other. Andrew realized that these positive stories brought a new energy to the entire corporate structure. Back at Riley's store, everyday life carried on. She faced challenges, irate customers, busy weekends, and staff shortages, but never lost her calm determination. She eventually developed a mentorship program, pairing seasoned cashiers with newer hires. They rotated, learning from one another's strengths. Hannah, now freed from the burden of a promotion freeze, recommended more staff for raises based on performance. Andrew backed these decisions, grateful that the company could recognize diligent workers instead of losing them to burnout. Over time, data showed a drop in turnover rates and an increase in overall customer satisfaction. As months turned into a year, the story of Andrew's undercover experience became part of the company's lore. New employees heard about how the CEO once stocked produce in disguise. Some were skeptical, but managers confirmed it was true. It provided a small spark of excitement and possibility. If the CEO cared enough to do that, maybe they were working in a special place after all. Meanwhile, Andrew quietly funded expansions to the scholarship program, ensuring that those who needed advanced educational opportunities had a shot at success. Riley stayed grounded. On her days off, she sometimes volunteered at a community center, cooking meals for low-income families. She told people she was just returning the kindness she'd once been shown. If asked about her promotion, she always credited her co-workers, saying the store's supportive environment allowed her to flourish. She never flaunted her raise, remaining the same person who slipped a few dollars to someone short on cash. Now, though, she had the backing of a company that understood the real value of such gestures. Andrew prepared a video address for all employees, explaining the significance of what he called the Riley effect. He described how one person's compassion illuminated the heart of an entire organization, prompting policy changes and cultural shifts. He ended the video with a simple phrase, "Remember, kindness starts with you." Employees across every branch watched it during staff meetings, many applauding or wiping their eyes. Though some might have dismissed it as feel-good rhetoric, countless others felt inspired to follow Riley's example in their own ways. Eventually, local media picked up the story of how Carter's Market had boosted employee welfare, improved morale, and engaged more deeply with surrounding neighborhoods. Customers noticed staff who seemed happier and more willing to help. Even skeptics admitted the chain had taken a distinct turn toward genuine care. Andrew took pride in how these efforts meshed with steady financial growth. More importantly, he found renewed purpose. He no longer felt disconnected. He was intimately aware of the lives touched by every policy. But nothing brought him as much joy as seeing Riley thrive. She was no longer just a cashier with a tough backstory. She was a respected supervisor who influenced store culture. During a quiet moment in the break room, Andrew thanked her again, acknowledging that her everyday gestures had sparked transformations beyond her imagining. She smiled, tapping the company badge pinned to her shirt. "I guess we're all part of the same team now," she said. Andrew nodded. "Yes, we always were, but now we finally act like it." Before long, Andrew began encouraging other executives in his network to adopt similar undercover approaches to learn about their front line. Some were intrigued, while others dismissed it as impractical. Andrew knew it might not suit every company, but insisted there was no substitute for walking in an employee's shoes. The heartfelt experiences he gained were proof enough that leadership needed empathy to stay grounded and relevant. By the close of that transformative year, Carter's Market hosted its first Community Appreciation Day, offering special deals, hosting local vendors, and celebrating everyday heroes. In a brief speech, Andrew recounted the turning point when he first saw Riley slip her own money into the register. That image was forever etched in his mind, a reminder of what business should stand for. "If we forget compassion," he told the crowd, "we forget our humanity. But one kind act can reignite that sense of shared purpose." Of course, not everything was perfect. There were still disgruntled customers, budget constraints, and the ongoing challenge of balancing business with benevolence. Yet the culture had improved. People communicated more openly, trusting leadership to listen and respond. Riley and Hannah had the store humming efficiently, and employees felt proud to work for a company that respected their contributions. Even Marcus, who'd helped Andrew plan the disguise, remarked on the striking change in Andrew's demeanor. "You look happier these days," he noted, to which Andrew replied, "I'm closer to the people who matter." Reflecting on it all, Andrew recognized the timeless truth behind his mother's old saying, "You really can't know a place until you've walked in someone else's shoes." Going undercover gave him the chance to see the hopes and struggles lurking behind every smile and every price tag. It reminded him that data points never capture the warmth of a personal interaction, and it reawakened his commitment to building a business that served not just its customers, but also its dedicated workforce. Before signing off on new expansions, Andrew made it mandatory for senior managers to spend some hours each month in frontline roles. Even if it was just bagging groceries for an afternoon, he wanted them to have real conversations with staff and customers. Some balked at first, but eventually found it eye-opening. The stories they heard encouraged more thoughtful decisions back at corporate. Andrew took it as proof that one person's kindness, Riley's, could ripple outward, shaping the entire organization in subtle and profound ways. To anyone reading or hearing this tale, let it serve as a gentle reminder. In any business, behind every transaction stands a human being. Small gestures can have lasting impact, especially when leadership notices and acts to support them. As Andrew often says, kindness is the only investment guaranteed to grow. So if you ever find yourself wondering whether empathy has a place in a busy world, consider the difference one caring cashier made and how it transformed a CEO, a store, and eventually an entire corporate culture. If you've stayed with me through this story, I invite you to think about where you can extend a hand. Maybe you're a leader with the power to change policies. Maybe you're a worker who can brighten someone's day with a simple act of compassion. Or maybe you're a customer who can show appreciation for those who serve you. Whatever your role, know that you hold a piece of the larger puzzle in your hands. We each have the chance to make a difference, one interaction at a time. So the next time you step into a store, remember that the person behind the counter might be carrying invisible burdens or quietly helping others. Or the next time you look at a corporate memo, recall that it likely reflects decisions affecting real lives. Like Andrew Carter, you might discover that stepping beyond the usual boundaries can lead to a powerful awakening. And, as Riley taught us, doing good for others often sparks a chain of goodness we never could have predicted. Thank you for sharing in this journey. If you feel inspired, comment with your thoughts, share your own acts of kindness, or encourage a friend to do the same. The ripple effect is real, and every new wave starts with a single drop. After all, what better way to honor the spirit of a humble cashier's generosity than to extend that gift to someone else? Let's keep the conversation going, and remember, sometimes all it takes is one person to change everything, especially when that person chooses kindness over indifference.